Somewhere on Earth, someone is buying a Big Mac right now. That happens every few seconds, all day, every single day. Based on their own numbers, McDonald's turns that into close to $16,000 in pure profit every single minute. Not revenue, profit. Money left over after literally everything else gets paid. But almost nobody realises where most of that money actually comes from. McDonald's is quietly one of the biggest landlords on planet Earth. Once you see how this business really works, you will never look at a drive-thru the same way again. So here's exactly how much money McDonald's makes, where it really comes from, and why the burger might be the smallest part of this entire story. Let's start with the basics, because even these are wild. In 2025, McDonald's reported $26.9 billion in revenue. That's what officially lands on the corporation's own books. But across every McDonald's on the planet, company-run and franchise combined, customers spent $139.4 billion. That's the real size of this empire. Almost $140 billion moving through golden arches in over 100 countries. Spread across the year, that works out to almost $382 million spent at a McDonald's somewhere on Earth every single day. The US brought in close to $11 billion of that total. International markets like the UK, France, Germany, Canada and Australia brought in even more, over $13.6 billion combined. Before taxes and interest, operating income came in at $12.4 billion, up 6% from the year before. Out of everything McDonald's collected, $8.56 billion was pure profit, after every wage, every ingredient and every tax. That tax bill alone runs around 20 to 22% of pre-tax income, which is roughly in line with a standard US corporate rate.
None of this was guaranteed a year earlier. Late in 2024, an E. coli scare linked to McDonald's actually made US sales shrink for a stretch. So how did they turn that into one of the strongest years in company history? They leaned hard into value. Cheaper meal deals and a smarter loyalty app brought people back through the door. Then came the marketing stunts, reviving the classic Monopoly game, a Grinch-themed meal that got so popular McDonald's briefly became the largest seller of socks on Earth, moving 50 million pairs in days. By the fourth quarter of 2025, US same-store sales were up 6.8%. Global comparable sales grew 3.1% for the entire year. That strategy shift is a big reason McDonald's ended the year with $7 billion in quarterly revenue, beating what Wall Street even expected.
Now, here's where most people get it wrong. They assume McDonald's runs those restaurants. It mostly doesn't. 95% of McDonald's locations worldwide are franchised, owned and operated by regular business people, not the corporation. So the person flipping your burger almost certainly doesn't work for McDonald's Corporation at all. That single decision has a side effect. McDonald's now generates about $179,000 in revenue for every employee on its own payroll. That's because most day-to-day labor costs sit with franchisees, not headquarters. Becoming one of those franchisees isn't cheap or easy either. McDonald's is famously selective about who it hands the keys to, which leaves one obvious question. If McDonald's isn't the one cooking your food, what exactly is it getting paid for?
This is the part that changes everything. McDonald's owns around 80% of the buildings and 56% of the land sitting underneath its restaurants worldwide. That's a real estate portfolio worth close to $120 billion. A franchisee doesn't just pay for the right to use the name, they pay rent, real rent, on land McDonald's already owns. Those leases often run 20 years with built-in renewal options, which means McDonald's collects rent whether the economy's booming or falling apart. Decades ago, one of the company's own finance chiefs basically said the quiet part out loud. This was never really a hamburger company, it was a real estate company, and the burgers were simply what kept tenants paying rent on time. So next time you order fries, remember this, you're not just buying food, you're helping cover the lease on some of the most valuable street corners on the planet.
So how does that money actually flow? A franchisee pays rent on the building. They pay a royalty of roughly 4 to 5% of their total sales, and they pay a hefty upfront fee just to open the doors. McDonald's collects almost all of that, no matter what, good month or bad month, rain or shine. Out of the $26.9 billion McDonald's made in 2025, $16.5 billion, that's 62% of everything, came from franchise fees, rent and royalties alone. Only $9.7 billion came from restaurants McDonald's actually runs itself. Most of McDonald's money doesn't come from cooking food, it comes from collecting checks. All of that adds up to an operating margin of roughly 46%. Most restaurant chains would call it a great year if they hit half of that. Now, zoom out for a second, because the scale here is genuinely hard to picture. There are 45,356 McDonald's restaurants on Earth right now. A year earlier, there were 43,477. In 2025 alone, McDonald's opened 2,276 new restaurants. That works out to a brand new McDonald's opening somewhere in the world roughly every 4 hours. The United States has about 13,700 locations. China has more than 7,700 after adding nearly 920 new restaurants in a single year. Japan has over 3,000. And they're not done building. McDonald's capital spending plan for 2026 alone sits between $3.7 and $3.9 billion, most of it aimed at opening more restaurants and upgrading existing ones. Across the whole system, more than 2 million people go to work for a McDonald's every single day. An estimated 70 million customers walk in or order through the app every day. That's close to the entire population of the United Kingdom eating McDonald's daily.
There's also a piece of this business most people barely think about, the loyalty app. That program now runs in 70 countries. Almost 210 million people used it in just the last 90 days of the year. Loyalty members alone spent close to $37 billion in 2025. That's up 20% from the year before. Right now, McDonald's says roughly 55,000 delivery orders are being prepared somewhere in the world at this exact moment. And they're aiming higher. The target is 250 million loyalty users and $45 billion in loyalty sales by the end of 2027. McDonald's isn't only selling burgers anymore. It's sitting on one of the biggest customer data operations in all of retail.
Investors have known all of this for years. McDonald's is currently worth close to $200 billion on the stock market. That said, the ride hasn't been perfectly smooth. The stock is still sitting more than 20% below its 52-week high, proof that even a company printing billions can face real investor doubt. In 2025 alone, the company generated $7.2 billion in free cash flow and handed $7.1 billion of it straight back to shareholders through dividends and buybacks. They just extended their dividend increase streak to 50 straight years, paying shareholders more every single year for half a century.
That streak survived recessions, a pandemic, and multiple food safety scares. It kept growing anyway.
But the biggest number in this story isn't really about the company. It's about one person. In 2025, CEO Chris Kempczinski was paid about $20.6 million. The median McDonald's employee that same year made around $19,000. Entry-level crew pay is often cited around $12 to $13 an hour, depending on the location. Do the math, and the CEO earned over 1,000 times what a typical worker inside this system made. He's not the only one earning big at headquarters either. McDonald's chief financial officer took home $8.6 million in 2025. The next several executives below him each made somewhere between $5 and $9 million. Same company, same year. Very different realities depending on where you sit.
None of this is slowing down. In the first quarter of 2026 alone, revenue was already up more than 9% from the year before. So next time you pull into a drive-thru, remember what you're actually funding. A little bit of beef, a little bit of salt, and a whole lot of rent. That's how McDonald's really makes its money. Not one burger at a time, one lease at a time. If any of these numbers surprised you, tell me which one in the comments. I'll read every single one.